So that question is, how, if you had a deficient calf and he or she was otherwise healthy, how long would it take to replete them? Not long. It is fast. So I can give you some examples of our experiences. If you take a weaned calf and it otherwise stays healthy and it goes into a grow yard, if selenium and copper, which are the only two we can really accurately measure in liver tissue, easily in 2 to 4 weeks, but definitely by the end of that month, they are repleted into an adequate state. Now, the one thing that could be a problem with that is the overlaying an antagonist like sulfur. But most nutritionists are watching for that and know that. But sulfur could get in the way of achieving that optimal outcome in a short period of time. But if you don't have a strong antagonist in there, and this otherwise deficient animal, like the gentleman's question I tried to address before, otherwise deficient animal, they will replete quickly, real fast, and easily in a couple of weeks. On that same note, even if they're on a high sulfur diet, I have a couple of experiences with this, but we had a producer that had some Brangus heifers. These were yearling heifers. They were beautiful, slick, fat heifers, grazing ammonium sulfate fertilized spring ryegrass, winter ryegrass. And the student went out and biopsied those calves, and they came back almost unmeasurable concentrations of copper. I mean, levels so low that we have a hard time even inducing that in experimental conditions. So I figured something went wrong in the lab. And all of you that work with liver biopsies know you don't really have a second chance, right? You got to get another biopsy. So the student went back and rebiopsied them, and the producer wasn't real happy about that, and I apologized that something must have went wrong. But no, the samples came back, and these animals were severely deficient in copper. So I asked the producer if we could bring those heifers to our research center because they would make a great experimental model. So he brought them, and I'm sorry, these were first calf heifers. They were getting ready to calve. And he brought them, and we put them on winter Bahia grass that had very low concentrations of selenium and copper with no supplemental selenium and copper. We just brought them to the research center, and as soon as they calved, we put them into individual feeding pens and started to study them. Almost all of them were back to normal by the time they calved, just because we removed them off of that high sulfur forage. We didn't even supplement them with anything. Just removing the antagonist allowed that animal to efficiently utilize copper and selenium. So I only tell you that story because it's amazing to me of how efficient utilization can be when the animals are deficient and the antagonist is removed.